Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Domino Tales. This will be episode 4. I'm so glad that you're continuing to listen. It really makes me happy. Today we're going to talk about another interesting episode. I don't really want to know if you want to call it paranormal of sorts. It sort of reminds me of astral traveling. Now, if you don't know what that is when they say that the spirit, when you're in a certain sleeping state, your mind is extremely active. You may not always know that. Everyone dreams, whether or not you remember it, and your mind is extremely active while the rest of your body rests. Because it's taking care of everything. And they say that your spirit or soul, or possibly your energy, is able to separate itself from the body and is able to travel. A lot of people have experienced this. They said they've seen themselves sleeping, or they've traveled to places they've never been to. I myself have experienced it on multiple occasions. It's always very fascinating to me. Sometimes it's startling at first. I'm sure for many it is. Some of them are even terrified, but I've honestly experienced it more than once, and myself I've kind of learned to recognize it when it happens, or at least by the time I wake up I realize what has happened. I don't really want to know if you want to consider this astral traveling either, but it's something of the sort. I'm going to call this episode The Voice from the Future. Kind of sounds like a 1950s sci-fi movie. I'm going to call it this because of the personal experience that I had that I felt was unique enough for Domino Tales. This was back when I lived in Pittsburgh, and I would often sleep during the day because I'd always be up at night. And I still lived with my mom at the time. This is before I moved away. My family had gone out early in the morning because they were preparing for a birthday party. I believe it was one of my sisters. They wanted to go out and get stuff, and they weren't going to be back until the late afternoon, so I knew I had lots of time to sleep. And I remember when they left, it was like 8 in the morning around that time, and they weren't due to be back until like around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So that gave me some time to catch up on sleep, and I remember that I was very much asleep, but I had sort of like sleep paralysis. If you don't know what that means, it's when you're aware that you're awake, but you cannot move. You feel like you're being held down. Sometimes it's very terrifying. I've had a few of those moments where it really scared me, honestly. This particular time, I didn't feel like I was being held down. I felt very calm, collected, almost weightless. I could see my room very faintly. I remember particularly I could see my grandfather clock. And I could hear my clocks very faintly in the background, but I was asleep too. Now, before this happened, before my mum left, she told me my grandmother was coming over later in the day. When by the time they came back home, my grandmother was going to come with them. They were going to go meet up with her. And I remember seeing the time on my clock. It was close to noon. so they weren't due back yet. In the distance, on the other side of my door, the other side of my door was the dining room, by the way. My bedroom was pretty much like a den. And I could always hear people in the house. I was home alone. I knew I was home alone. But on the other side of the door in the dining room, I heard my grandmother talking. I don't know what she was saying, but I could hear the tone of her voice very clearly. I'm not sure if my mom would remember this. I'm not even sure if I've even told her about it. I think I have, because I think I told her about it when she came home, but she was speaking very clearly, at least in tone, not in words. And I remember actually trying to listen, like I tried to listen intently. What is she saying? And then I thought to myself, well, she's here early. They must have come back really early. And I pretty much just summed it up as, well, they're just gonna have to deal with me sleeping a little bit longer because I'm not ready to get up yet. And my vision slowly faded back into blackness and I went to sleep completely. I woke up later on, a few hours later, like around 3 or 4, and I got up and I could hear my mom talking in the background, and so I got up. My grandmother was in the living room or somewhere, and I told my mom, when did Grandma get here? No, my grandmother wasn't there yet, that's right. I came up and I said, when did Grandma get here? Because I was looking for her, and I wanted to, say hi to her, I wanted to see her. And my mom looks at me and she says, Grandma's not here yet. She's gonna be here shortly, but she was not here yet. And that's when I told her I heard her earlier in the house. My grandmother didn't have a key to the house. And if she did, why would she come in the house, sit down at the dining table, and talk to herself? She wasn't that old yet. So that is a very interesting thing. I told this to Maya and he said it's almost like I astral traveled for just very temporarily into the future. Without leaving the present, I could hear something from the future, possibly my grandmother talking from the future, while in the present at the same time. I had never done anything like that before, never experienced anything like that before. And thinking back on it now, it's really kind of fascinating to me. It's really interesting how I could hear my grandmother talking before she got there. It was never fully explained. I don't think it ever will be fully explained. But I know what time it was that I temporarily woke up, heard her voice, went back to sleep, and woke up without her being there, and was told that she had not come yet. So, for those out there who kind of think they have an answer for everything like this, explain that one to me. I'd surely love to know, because I kind of think that it doesn't have an explanation. That's pretty much it. Kind of a shorter episode today. But yes. I guess till next time, on Domino Tales, another interesting story. We shall see where it goes from here. I hope you all are continuing to enjoy. And tell about some of your own experiences in the comments if you want. The world of the paranormal or the unexplained is always a fascinating topic. It's always changing, always happening. See you then on the next episode.